All right, so this is one hot topic that isn't losing heat anytime soon. I suspect we first spoke about this mid-2018, and every month new information has been revealed about Jamaica's state-owned oil refinery, Petrojam. Now let's look on a different side of things with Attorney at Law Gavin Goff and President of the Jamaica Employees Federation, Mr. David Wan. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Sir David in the jacket and Mr. Gavin isn't. Good morning to you both.
Morning. Thank you for having us.
Sir, I want to start with that question I asked before you went in. This non-disclosure agreement. What is that, and is that something that's normal in Jamaica and the world?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that it is not uncommon when a settlement is negotiated between two parties involving money, that it is not uncommon for there to be a non-disclosure agreement, to protect both sides from the details of that settlement.
When you say protect, what does that mean? So everybody, if I know, decided to get $2 million when I leave it. What is there to protect?
Well, just so that you keep the details of your settlement and your negotiation
conditions.
quiet. It is not uncommon.
Not uncommon. So there's nothing wrong with it, Sir Gavin?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se. I mean, people want to keep their business private. It becomes more complicated when it involves, for instance, public funds at work. Or it's a matter of some great national importance. But beyond that, just like we had the guy collecting his super millions in a scream mask, people generally want to keep their money matters very private.
So in that case, it's much ado about nothing.
Hold on. But when you said public personal and matter of national importance, this one ticks. Does this not tick both of those boxes?
Well, I don't know which one we're talking about.
We're going to go back to, we're using the Petrojam as a paradigm. We want to look at that and how typical this is, what we can learn from this moving forward. Because this, has raised a lot of questions on a lot of fronts that we still don't have a lot of answers to.
Right. Well, I mean, I wasn't involved in the Petrojam matter, so it really wouldn't be good for me to comment on it. But in general, I have been involved in a lot of negotiations which involve both private entities and public entities. And I can tell you that the confidentiality or non-disclosure clause is standard.
Who would ask for that? The employer or the employee?
Both. The employer wants it as well because very often they are paying a lot more than they would want to have disclosed, and they would want their other employees to become aware of. Especially in circumstances where they feel that they have no choice but to make this payment for one reason or the other.
Okay.
They really don't want people knowing that this is a money tree here. So they want it as well.
In issues where the public purse, where the taxpayer is involved, is there not an obligation to disclose to us despite the terms of an NDA? And should we not be lobbying to say, but a few money, we need to know what happened here, especially if there seems to have been some issues of governance, breach of public trust? Do we not have a right to know?
Certainly in terms of public funds, we would have a right to know. But let's bear in mind that in this particular case, it was the employee's attorney who asked for and initiated the request for the NDA, as I understand. So it wasn't the company saying, we must have this NDA to get to the settlement.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Sir David, overall, the JEF, the overall role of the Federation would be what?
We're a lobby group for employers.
Employers?
Yes, employers. We're a trade union, as a matter of fact, for employers. And one of our core functions is to lobby on behalf of our employers for changes to the labor laws that we think would be more conducive to new investments and just generally more favorable to the employer. Because, for example, with the LRIDA, it has been
the
Labor Relations and Industrial Disputes Act.
Okay.
It is very old, 40 plus years. It is time for that to be reviewed. It's time for many labor laws to be reviewed. The Workmen's Compensation Act, all those other related acts. So we're saying, let us take a wholesome look at the labor laws, but the one we're particularly interested in because of what happened at Petrojam is the Labor Relations and Industrial Disputes Act.
Okay, and what do we need to know about that act? What would be the areas that would need to be revisited and updated or reformed?
There are several,
Okay.
but one quick example would be if an employee takes a case to the IDT and ends up losing, they are not assessed costs of the other side as it is in court. So that
Say that again, please.
if an employee
Me? Yeah.
brings a case against an employer to the IDT
IGR, yeah.
and loses,
And I lose.
and you lose,
Right?
the court does not award the costs of the other side to you
Right.
because you have lost.
Right.
Oh, and
So-
that obtains no?
Yes. So in a sense, it has created a situation where many, many employees take cases that in some cases are frivolous, but there's no chance of them being assessed the court costs of the other side, the legal costs of the other side. So it's
So even if I lose,
you're not
You're not
going to be
that-
assessed costs.
that don't make no sense.
That's
Why?
one of the things that we're.
But I mean, there are a number of other ways in which it affects both employers and employees. For instance, when our labor relations code came into effect in, I think, 1976 or thereabout, it was really geared towards large industrial organizations with unions in them. And so there were some rules which were set contemplating organizations with 100 or more employees in there. And then when in 2010, there were amendments to the Labor Relations and Industrial Disputes Act, which made that labor code apply in full force to organizations of all sizes. It caused quite a problem because they didn't amend it. So when they're speaking about, for instance, if you have a disciplinary matter, you must have it heard by one level of management, and then if the person wants to appeal, they must go to a higher level of management which wasn't
Mediation
involved, and those kind of things.
Yes.
I mean, that applies inside your home as well. If you have a helper, if you have a gardener, and you think that they've been stealing from you, that code applies to your home as well. And that means that you now have to get...
Should apply.
Should apply. Which means you now have to get somebody to come in, and she can get a lawyer, or he can get a lawyer to come in,
Okay.
and you have to pay for
Okay.
a probably lawyer to come into
Yeah,
your home and determine whether or not this person was stealing. And so it creates a very harsh environment for small businesses especially. And what we're saying is that if a little more attention is paid to creating and amending laws in a timely manner, we would have situations where small businesses especially would feel that their needs are being catered to as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, but this is a general issue we have with laws, no?
Yes.
And you still have laws on the book that say you can't park your horse outside the salon after 6 o'clock?
Yes. it's
Okay,
something like
so...
Unless it's a brown horse.
No, seriously, that's an actual. So, I mean, in terms of looking to next steps and how we fix this, we still have a long way to go. Is there a time frame within which we're looking at any of this to happen?
Why? Our
Okay,
experience,
that sounds like a
even
no.
in bringing in new laws into being, it takes a long time.
Yep. Sir David, you gave us one scenario that you want to see change. What else you want to see change?
Okay. For example, put very simply, when an employee is found by the IDT to have been, there was justifiable discharge, save and except, a process wasn't followed. We're saying, yes, charge the employer something for not following that process, but don't ignore the fact that the person was, for example, stealing from you.
So the person should have been fired anyway.
Should have been
Right.
fired, but you
But
didn't
due-
follow
but due
But
process.
you didn't follow process.
But now, what exists now is that the employer is ordered to reinstate in that scenario I gave you, even though the person was stealing,
Just because they didn't follow the process.
just because they didn't follow the process. And they're getting awards because they didn't follow process.
Even though you can prove that the person did really thief.
Justifiable
But
discharge.
process not really important. I mean,
Process is important, but process is supposed to be a means to an end of justice. And justice isn't one-sided. There are
Gotcha.
many sides to it and many facets to it. So what we're seeing now, for instance, there are some well-known cases, the Juicy Beef case, for instance, where the IDT said, yes, this person actually was probably stealing, but you didn't follow the process, and the person got compensated hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. And that tends to strike at the heart of people's understanding of what justice really is. And so that's why we have this perception that the IDT isn't balanced.
Hang on a little bit there, Sir Gavin. So, if I prove that the person did thief, but I never follow a process, I have to give them back the job, or I have to just pay them our money?
They might be awarded money from you.
And sometimes they're given back the job.
Right.
Even though I can prove that they're stolen
You could
from the
have,
company.
and there was, I remember early in my career, a member of the IDT panel said that you could have video proof evidence of the person with their hand in the cookie jar. If you don't follow due process, they are going to punish you as the employer.
Catch them steal, which is why so
Wow.
many companies are being so very careful now.
Wow.
Right.
As to how they. So if we were to do a www, what went wrong, what went right, maybe out of this case, which you cannot speak specifically to, but just learnings that you see that you can advise whether employer or employee about, Gavin. What would some of those things be?
I think first and foremost, we need to understand on a macro level that the playing field needs to be leveled. And it needs to be leveled from both sides, because there are areas and aspects in respect of which the laws are strongly favoring employers. And there are areas where they're strongly favoring employees. And you have both camps, I should say, kind of digging in their heels and saying, well, I'm trying to hold on to this space. So one of the first things we need to do is we need to come to the table and we need to say, time is now. We need to have a meaningful dialogue about reform right now. And another thing which we need to do is we need to embrace transparency, which takes us back to where we started. Because this is not, what we're talking about is not the first or the second. This has been happening for decades. And it's really only now, because it's being brought to the fore, that we are igniting this kind of debate.
What's been happening for decades?
These kinds of settlements and people trying to avoid having to have these matters go before the Industrial Disputes Tribunal, feeling that it's not worth it to do it, and feeling that you'd rather pay somebody than have a process go through to find out the truth and get to the bottom of the matter.
So David, we're not really here to blame anyone, but this Petrogram thing has been in the thing, and we hear that this lady got too much money and this separation. If you had to blame someone, where would you put that?
To blame. Let me put it this way. Let me answer it this way. There's a thought, and we don't know the details of it. There's a thought that the government, because it feels like taking this case to the IDT would put them in such an unfavorable position that they said, we'd rather pay this money than go and face the prospects of the IDT, which historically has been highly in favor of the employees, and we could be charged with a lot more money. That's the thinking we think the government had, although we're not privy to what really happened.
Perception, and that perception is often, for a lot of people, it's reality.
Yes.
I think from the private sector perspective, people are feeling, well, boy, I don't have the kind of pocket that the government has. So, God forbid this should ever happen to me. What's the example that's being set? What will that mean for my business if I'm ever in a similar situation?
And that would suggest that you think it was wrong what happened?
Oh, I can't really say because I'm not involved.
But it's just to get the learnings from it so that you don't end up in that position, which is why I asked. Lawyer, what do you expect?
Which would suggest, these are my words.
No, you do not put word in.
No, I said these are my words,
Don't
would
come
suggest
on.
that maybe it wasn't as hunky-dory.
We
as-
don't know
as
the
it could be.
details, you
We
say,
don't
Sir
know.
David,
But
but do you think we
things-
ever will?
I think there is,
Given the public outcry and
there's
people
a
are
lobby
putting this
effort,
down.
and
Yeah.
because of the public, debate, I think that all three parties, the government, the unions, and the private sector employers, will be willing to look at a wholesome, review of all the labor laws.
Well, it's obvious, sir, that something is not right. Obvious.
Oh,
Yes.
That's quite
Absolutely,
obvious.
obvious.
And it's also obvious that things need to be changed.
Right. And the labor reform process has been going on for a long time. I think that's part of it. We really sometimes need something, a catalyst, to make something a priority on somebody's list.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Wan, does this set up other companies and maybe set up is not the right phrase, but does it?
That's what Gavin was saying.
Yeah,
earlier.
does it put everyone kind of, whoops?
I think the government's action is going to be interpreted by many companies as let's not run the risk of the IDT, let's settle. Well, I think it will instill that kind of thinking.
And that's not a good thing.
No.
No. You really should not have a body that's there to settle disputes that persons are afraid to go to, you know.
Have you gotten the answers that you wanted? Are you done digging? Okay.
That's part of my role, though. and we
Yes,
have
we
two
know.
esteemed gentlemen who
Yes.
kind of bunks everything that I've
Neatly.
Well, let's hope that all's well, that ends well
see.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
And
Attorney
transparency is
Gavin
important
Goff.
for public trust.
Yep.
So,
And President of the Jamaica Employers Federation, Mr. David Wan.
all right, stay with us, guys, so you can hear just why you should think before you hit that post button. Social media is on the menu next. Stay with us.